Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, and good morning to everyone. Let me start the presentation. Okay, change and innovation. These are two fascinating phenomena that sparked my interest a while ago, and since then became my passion. And I'm not alone. People have been trying to understand change and innovation for centuries, trying to find answers to questions like, what is the link between change and innovation? Can we avoid change? How to manage both? And is there an approach that can help us to achieve the outcomes we hope for? Upfront, I want to say that, of course, we won't be able to cover both topics in great depth. And it's likely you will have more questions than answers when I finish my talk. But I hope this will be just the beginning of our discussion, as in my opinion, it's questions, not answers, lead to new discoveries and insights. So let's start with a question about the link between innovation and change. In my view, the link is straightforward. Innovation always creates change. But change does not always trigger innovation. For example, if your company culture changes in a such way that blame culture becomes normal, then surely this change won't result in more innovation. But when we talk about innovation, what do we really mean by innovation? There are many definitions out there, many good definitions out there, but I use this one as it includes, in my opinion, three key elements. Innovation always involves, of course, new ideas. Those ideas create value, and by nature, it is a change process. So innovation sounds like an exciting endeavor, and you can hear many companies talk about innovation and see innovation among many companies' values. But how often are we satisfied with innovation outcomes? For example, what's your opinion on that? Let's see what the audience think and vote how you satisfied with innovation outcomes at your company. Good, I see voting started. Oh, it's great to see so far that it's changing. So it's satisfied, not satisfied, roughly. Then let's give a couple of more minutes, because I think it's very interesting to hear your opinion on that. Let's give a couple of more seconds. Okay, so what do we have? It's great to see that actually 42% of you who voted satisfied with innovation outcomes. However, the alarming 52% are not satisfied, and we don't have anybody voted for very satisfied, and there are some that they actually don't have any innovation outcomes. So you can see now the results of McKinsey survey, and they actually, when they surveyed company, they found that while business leaders do agree that innovation is important for growth, according to their results, it were actually only 6% who were satisfied with innovation performance. So those who we have voted that they satisfied with innovation outcomes, you're not it's great because not many companies out there that are actually satisfied. So why is it that McKinsey survey shows these results, and why is it like this, and how to improve the situation? Is it possible to improve the situation? Well, let's look first at one of fundamental components of innovation, change. Because as I said before, change is innovation is a change process by nature. So the more we learn about it, the more chances we can develop a better understanding of innovation process and as a result improve that process. Since ancient time, people were trying to understand the nature of change. And what they observed, that while change itself was an inescapable element of life, people's fear of change was another constant. And I think the main reason of this fear is actually a fear of unknown and uncertainty of what change can bring. But fear is a mind killer. So perhaps due to this fear, people tried to find patterns and laws that would help them to understand and navigate through change. Even 2,500 years ago, people observed that every situation in life goes through a 6 stages cycle. They captured this knowledge in the ancient Chinese text, CHING, translated as a book of changes. And those mutable but predictable changes were coming into being, developing, transformation, moving towards the highest potential, achieving peak potential, and descending towards the finale. What they realize that those who understand that change is a rule, not exception, have much higher chance to realize opportunities that change brings. You can also you can easily see that all these 6 stages are applicable, for example, to a product life cycle, what we have in our businesses, going from a product idea to the end of life stage. So even though the process of change follows the same 6 stages, one change can be quite different from another, considering their scale, speed, or complexity. So how to find the right approach, how to manage the change? One such approach, before I talk about the approach, I want to highlight that Dave Snowden, who is expert in the knowledge management and complexity science, and who also was a director at IBM's Institute for Knowledge Management, he pointed out that to find the right solutions, you need to understand the context. So, and our context is a modern world, and it becomes more and more complex. We have more and more data, as Dan was talking about in previous presentation. So, and there are many different approaches and frameworks how to manage change. I'm sure you know many of them, but in my opinion, the most effective ones are those that take systems approach. So now I'll talk about the approach that I find very useful when I think when I think about change, when I think about innovation as well. So this approach is Cynefin framework, and it was created by Dave Snowden in 1999. Cynefin is a Welsh word, and apologies if my pronunciation is not good enough. And while there are no direct, I believe there is no direct translation in English, it means environment and its multiple factors that influence us. So the framework helps to make sense of the situation and choose the right approach to change management, avoiding problems when people try to apply preferred management style in any circumstances. So according to the framework, there are five decision-making system states. And they are defined by cause and effect relationships. So two of the domains are ordered domains, simple or obvious. This domain represents known knowns, and it's characterized by stability of the situation and clear cause and effect relationship. The right answer here is self-evident, and the decisions unquestioned because all share the same understanding. Another domain, complicated domain, represents known unknowns. In this domain, there is still clear cause and effect relationship, but there are many causal factors and multiple solutions exist. Then there are two non-ordered domains, complex or domain of unknown unknowns, with entangled relationships, non-linear causality, where it might be impossible to identify one correct answer. And chaotic domain, where there's no relationship between cause and effect, or it's impossible to establish it. And this domain is domain of crisis and emergency situations. And the fifth domain, confused, is it is where you don't know yet if the situation is obvious, complicated, complex, or chaotic. So what do you do in these domains? Let's start with obvious. In this domain, the relationship between cause and effect, as I said, is predictable and simple. That means that there are often clearly defined steps in the process, and they're based on the best practice. When you are in this domain, your objective is the optimal, perfect solution. For example, problems encountered with insurance claims are often predictable, and there are processes in place to handle most of them. So the response mode in this case is sense, categorize, respond. You should assess the facts, categorize them, and then respond by following the best practice, which is usually gives one established correct answer. Okay. The next domain is complicated. Here, the correct answer is not self-evident, and there might be multiple right solutions. To decide what to do, you will likely need the help of experts. That's why this domain also called domain of experts. To deal with a complicated situation, you will need to assess the situation, analyze what's known, and then decide on the best response using good practice. Your focus in this domain is on efficiency. For example, you may know that something is wrong with your health, but you would need to see various medical experts to diagnose what's wrong. In complex domain, You will leave the comfort zone of known cause and effect relationship rules, and you will have probably a hard time to determine them anyway. You can understand why things happen only in retrospect. That's why experimentation becomes the very important tool, and you apply actually emergent practice by running parallel safe-to-fail experiments to identify what actually works. And you can see from the description that these days many business situations fall into this domain. The best approach here is to probe, sense, respond, and you strive for effectiveness, which means that you're trying to achieve a desired change. Moving to the chaotic domain, your primary goal here is survival. You will need to have an effect on the situation, trying to stabilize it before you actually can make a decision what to do. So that's why the action mode here is first act decisively, so to address most pressing issues and establish order, then sense where stability is present and where is not, and then respond. And the fifth domain, confused. If you don't know in what situation you are, as I said, you're in the confused domain. So in these circumstances, your primary goal would be is to gather more information and then act accordingly. So how to move between the domains? If you find yourself in a chaotic domain, you will need to gain control over the situation in order to move to the complex domain. To move from complex to complicated, you will need to understand the situation. And to move from complicated to obvious, you will need to optimize your processes, define standard procedures, effectively trying to reduce complexity, so simplifying things. When you reach this simple or obvious state, however, the closer you get to the perfect solution, the more susceptible you become to new or unforeseen challenges, as everything was tailored too perfectly to a particular type of problem and environment. So effectively, the system becomes too rigid. This means that changes in the environment may push you over the cliff from the obvious to chaotic domain very easily. And I believe many successful companies experienced this when pandemic pushed them effectively over the cliff, and they found themselves in the state of crisis. So the changes caused by pandemic were too sudden and too big for companies to manage using the obvious domain action mode. Considering link between change and innovation. So complex domain has a higher potential as there are limited constraints. Innovation, of course, will be happening in other domains as well, and even in obvious domain, but potential is low in obvious domain, as you will be highly constrained by established processes and standards. Plus, there is this danger zone between obvious and a chaotic domain. So if we think about innovation as a change process, then you could probably associate different types of innovation with different change domains. For example, incremental type of innovation, where change triggered by innovation is small and well understood, would fall into ordered domains, obvious or complicated. While transformational innovation would be best, of course, managed by a complex domain approach. So what is the best way, best approach to manage innovation. Again, as with CHING, I believe is a systems approach that will allow you to accommodate for various types of innovation, from incremental to transformational. Often, companies start building their innovation system by focusing on the processes. Why? Maybe because it feels easier. However, when you're building the innovation system, you should consider all key elements, hence the systems approach, which are strategy, innovation capabilities required to deliver your strategy, and enablers. So you start with innovation strategy that, of course, should be driven by business strategy. Then decide what innovation capabilities you need to have in order to realize this strategy. And then and these innovation capabilities, they all include innovation processes and culture. Also, of course, not forgetting about enablers that you need to make your system work smoothly. I won't be talking about all elements, so I'll touch just on some elements of the system. Starting with innovation strategy. One tip here I want to share with you that may help is tip about how to define your innovation, your strategic innovation initiatives. So you should decide on your focus area. So is it internal focus or external? And where innovation creation will be focused, problem focused versus opportunity driven. So by doing this, you will have much easier time when you try to establish where you need to focus your innovation initiatives. Another element of innovation system, which often does not receive, in my opinion, high enough priority, is organizational culture. One of the reasons could be that it's not an easy task to define and manage it. Also, perhaps it takes time to build the right culture, and it's very easy to destroy or damage it. But anyway, here are 7 elements of organizational culture that researchers found to support innovation and creativity. The first element, strategy. And the strategy needs to be customer focused marketing. It needs to have customer focused marketing orientation and its core, and also integrate core values into all activities. It also, this element also demonstrates a positive reaction on change by top management, who makes innovation happen. Purposefulness. This element indicates how well employees understand companies' vision, mission, and goals, and their involvement in reaching these goals. So it's very good to have exciting vision and mission and goals, but if, of course, employees don't understand it, then it's not helping to build this supporting or enabling organizational culture for innovation. Then, of course, the strength of trust relationship, and it's on all levels. Then behavior that encourages innovation, like encouragement to generate ideas, take calculated risks, etc. Of course, working environment that include factors like actualization of personal goals in pursuing organizational goals, constructive conflict handling, cooperation, active participation, and control of own work. Customer orientation factor that focuses on understanding of external and internal customers on operational level. And of course, management support for open communication, allocation resources to innovation, the degree to which employers are blamed for mistakes, and the degree to which managers support adaptation of rules to keep up with the change. Actually, another research conducted by Gartner highlighted these three areas as the most important for building the culture of innovation. Senior leadership posture, that includes behavior and vision, innovation operationalization, and creativity development. And among them, the research found that the senior leadership posture is the top priority area. That's why I'll just focus on that and share with you a couple of tips how you can model the right behavior. Leaders should prioritize innovation projects, including the high-risk ones. Of course, it needs to be a calculated risk, but if you don't prioritize innovation projects, then innovation won't get enough resources and attention. Have open mind and be open to new ideas, particularly those that disrupt the status quo. Support open innovation approach that allows to realize value of company's ecosystem through collaboration and partnership with third parties. And last but not least, support learning and building a strong learning and knowledge management system. But often, you would say that, okay, it's all well and good, but often it's not easy for a leader to pursue truly innovative ideas. CEB, now Gartner, found that these are the three typical barriers, and some of them may resonate with you. So the leaders don't see value in setting innovation targets. They're skeptical about measurements, and they're concerned about the impact on performance. So what could be done to minimize those barriers? Here's an approach I want to share with you that was taken by Whirlpool, and some of the, you can take some of the ideas from this approach and find them useful. So first of all, they began with giving the robust definition of innovation. And from my experience, I think it's really important because it helps to create a common understanding. And it's not just what innovation is, but also how innovation helps to realize the business strategy. This clarity in return also boosts people's motivation as they understand why they need to innovate. And also, of course, it helps to choose the right KPIs to measure innovation outcomes. So next thing they did, they categorized innovation by putting in place a simple and adaptable system to track innovation, and also set clear guidelines for developing an innovation project business case. Also, to secure leadership accountability and responsibility for what leaders consider innovation projects, they introduced a signed-off protocol. We all know that innovation projects have higher risk of failure. And the more innovative, more transformational projects are, the more chances of failure. So if we just consider these risks, then innovation projects are much less attractive for leaders to invest resources. However, if the learning value is included in the evaluation, then it allows leaders to assess innovation projects more holistically. So that's why Whirlpool also developed and introduced a learning capture system. These are the tips and frameworks I wanted to share with you today, but you could ask me perhaps like if Britannic is applying any of these approaches, and maybe you did ask, I'm not checking the chat. So in other words, do we walk the talk? So the answer is yes. Britannic is really on the very exciting journey of building its innovation system. And I'll share with you just one approach that we're implementing to strengthen our innovation capabilities. So to tap into Britannic's strong ecosystem of partners, customers, and other stakeholders, we are building Innovation Hub. So the Innovation Hub we hope that Innovation Hub will help us not just to create an environment where employers can generate ideas, collaborate, co-create and prototype, but also will allow us to take an open innovation approach by inviting our customers and other stakeholders. So the Hub has clear goals of empowering all stakeholders, supporting scaled innovation and fostering the culture of innovation. How do we plan to operate the Hub in order to deliver innovative, fit-for-purpose solutions? So the framework we're building is based on a design thinking approach and consists of two phases. So research and design phase. And each of them includes 3 steps. In the research phase, we start with the discovery step to look at areas where innovation may bring business benefits. Then we define the opportunity and verify with the key stakeholders. And after that, we generate and prioritize ideas, which we take them to the next phase, design. In this phase, we first engage with the Innovation Hub community to develop possible solutions. Then we validate solutions by prototyping and testing them. And the last step makes sure that the developed solutions is smoothly integrated into Britannic's business, so with all the appropriate support and training. And the goal is to deliver value to all stakeholders and realize all anticipated benefits. This concludes my presentation, and I want to leave you with just these key takeaways. So, innovation always brings change. So always consider innovation as a change process. There is no one methodology to manage change and innovation in all circumstances, but you will have much better chances to realize opportunities that change and innovation bring if you apply systems approach. In order to choose the right action mode or process, first understand what change domain you are in, and then tailor your change strategy.